You know that feeling when you've been traveling for what feels like forever? I mean, the kind of travel where your body just aches.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you've been stuck in the middle seat of a car for like 12 hours, or you're lost in some endless airport terminal, or, and this is probably the best analogy, you're hiking up a really steep trail.
Your legs are burning.
Legs are burning, you're tired, you're dusty, and you're just about ready to quit. And then finally you crest the hill, you turn the corner, and there it is, the destination.
The arrival, that exact moment where all the exhaustion just vanishes and turns into adrenaline.
Exactly. The arrival is that physical sensation of relief and excitement all mixed together. You're not just looking at a place. You're looking at the end of the struggle.
In the beginning of the experience, it's a totally universal feeling.
It is. But today we're going to look at it through a very specific ancient lens. We're diving into Psalm 122.
And honestly, this text captures that feeling of arrival better than almost anything I've ever read.
Which makes sense because this isn't just a poem, is it? It's a song of degrees.
Right. Or a song of ascents. And for you listening, we should probably set the stage here. These weren't just verses people read quietly. They were, the playlist, so to speak, for pilgrims traveling uphill to Jerusalem.
Literally uphill.
Literally. Jerusalem is high up. No matter where you were coming from in ancient Israel, you had to ascend to get there. So these songs were the rhythm of that climb, sung by people who were out of breath, tired, but just filled with anticipation.
And our mission today is to unpack this specific song, Psalm 122, because it does something really fascinating. It links pure joy, architecture, civic justice, and peace all into one cohesive package.
It really is a system. And for anyone listening who feels like modern life is a bit fragmented, you feel isolated by your screens or your spiritual life feels totally separate from your, say, work life, this ancient text offers a surprisingly relevant blueprint.
It's a guide to how community and worship were actually designed to function together.
Exactly. It shows us you can't really have one without the other.
So let's get into the text. It starts with a line I think a lot of people have heard, even if they aren't super religious. Verse 1, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord.
It's a classic opening, but I want us to pause for a second on the grammar there because there's a really profound psychological shift happening in just that one sentence.
Okay, let's break it down. I was glad.
Singular emotion. The I is feeling something, but what's the trigger for that feeling?
When they said unto me, let us go.
You see it. It starts with I, but the reason for the joy is the yes.
That is so interesting. The joy isn't from something he did alone. It comes from an invitation.
Precisely. This is our first major insight. The psalmist isn't celebrating a private solo spirituality. He's not sitting alone on a mountaintop meditating. The gladness comes specifically from the gathering.
That is such a massive shift from how we tend to operate today. I feel like we live in the era of personal spirituality. I have my truth, you have yours.
I'll use my meditation app, you do your thing.
Right. We curate our spiritual lives like we curate our social media feeds to be exactly what we want, usually without other people messing it up.
That's a great way to put it. We see other people as a distraction. But the source here highlights that faith was never meant to be isolated. The text says, let us go. It's collective. And that's where the joy comes from.
It's the difference between watching a concert on YouTube by yourself in agony and actually being in the stadium with 50,000 other people singing the same thing.
Perfect analogy. The energy is completely different. You aren't just an observer. You're part of an event. And that brings us to the next verses, 2 and 3, where the song shifts from the feeling to the place itself.
Right. Verse 2 says, our feet shall stand within thy gates, O Jerusalem. And then verse 3 has this description that I found really interesting. Jerusalem is builded as a city that is compact together.
Compact together.
Now, I got to be honest. When I hear compact, I think of a tiny car or a really crowded subway at rush hour where you're wishing for a little less compactness. It sounds claustrophobic.
I get it. In a modern city, compact usually means cramped. But here, the source suggests we need to see it differently. It's not about overcrowding. It implies order, cohesion, intentional design.
So not just a pile of rocks thrown together.
No. Think about an ancient stone wall. If the stones aren't compact, if they aren't fitted tightly, the wall just falls down. This description of the architecture compact together is symbolic of the people themselves.
And the text brings that up in the next verse, right? Whither the tribes go up.
Exactly. Unto the testimony of Israel. We have to remember the history here. These 12 tribes, They were often rivals. They had their own territories, different economies. They didn't always get along.
So it wasn't one big happy family all year round.
Not at all. There was tension. But when they came to Jerusalem, they had to be compact together, shoulder to shoulder. The city represents that transition from 12 separate groups into one unified people.
That's a powerful image for today, valuing unity over division.
It is. And the key takeaway is that unity doesn't happen by accident. Stones don't just fall into a perfect wall. They have to be placed. Unity has to be cultivated.
So for you listening, this is a real challenge. I mean, we live in a culture that literally rewards fragmentation. Algorithms push us to be angry at the other tribe.
Correct. The algorithm wants you isolated. The psalm wants you connected.
So the trick becomes, how do we create that compact stability in our own lives, in our families, or our workplaces?
It starts by realizing that just being loosely aligned, sort of existing near each other, isn't enough. We have to look for that shared purpose that binds us. We have to be willing to experience the friction of community to get the strength of community.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, and here's where the song takes a really sharp left turn, at least for modern ears. Verse 5.
It does. It moves from worship right into politics and law.
Verse 5, for there are set thrones of judgment, the thrones of the house of David. Okay, let's unpack this. We're singing a happy travel song. We're glad to be here. And suddenly we're talking about thrones of judgment. It feels like walking into church and there's a court hearing in the lobby. It kind of kills the vibe, doesn't it?
It feels jarring to us because we're so used to separating these spheres. We have our spiritual life over here and our civic life over there. But the ancient mind just didn't compartmentalize like that.
So why are the thrones there? Why is that part of the reason to give thanks?
Because you can't have true worship without a concern for justice. That is the aha moment here. Jerusalem was the seat of worship, yes, but it was also the seat of the king, the ultimate judge.
Just a spiritual devotion and civic responsibility were tied together.
Inseparably. I mean, think about it. Can you really feel safe enough to celebrate and worship if you know that just outside the walls the courts are corrupt, if the poor are being exploited?
No, this celebration would feel completely hollow, fake.
Exactly. The thrones of judgment represent the rule of law, that there's integrity in leadership, so you can't have one without the other.
That makes so much sense. If the city's corrupt, it doesn't matter how loud the songs are.
Precisely. And this is a massive challenge for us today. The source basically says faith that gathers on Sunday should influence conduct on Monday. You can't sing about God's holiness and then ignore injustice in your city.
It's connecting faith and justice. It's actually a requirement of the text. It's part of the song.
It is. We want the joy of verse 1 without the judgment of verse 5. But the psalm says they're part of the same city.
Which leads perfectly into the famous exhortation in verse 6. We've had joy, we've had justice, and now the call to action. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
This is probably the verse everyone knows, but we have to define peace here. The Hebrew is shalom, and it means so much more than just the absence of war.
Right, it's not just a ceasefire.
No. A cemetery is peaceful by that definition. Shalom is about wholeness, completeness, flourishing. It's the idea that everything is working exactly as it should be.
And the scope of this prayer is huge. Verses 7 and 8 say, peace be within thy walls and prosperity within thy palaces.
And notice the coverage there. Walls means security, defense. Palaces means leadership, the economy, the administration.
So we're literally praying for the infrastructure and the government.
Exactly. And look at the motivation in verse 8. This is crucial. Why does he pray? He says, for my brethren and companions' sakes, I will now say, peace be within thee.
It's relational.
It's not selfish. He isn't saying, Lord, keep the city safe so my property value goes up. He's saying, I want the city to flourish because my friends and family live here.
That shifts the focus outward completely.
Totally. And this brings us to a powerful modern application, praying for the peace of your city.
Okay, so most of us aren't living in ancient Jerusalem, but the principle holds.
Right. Whether you're in New York or London or a small town, the instruction is to pray for the flourishing of your community, for safety, fairness, stability for your neighbors.
And I think this connects back to trust, doesn't it? When we pray for our city, we're admitting we aren't in total control.
That's a great point. It strengthens our trust in God because we're acknowledging our personal well-being is tied to the communal well-being. We can't just build a fortress around our own house and ignore the neighborhood.
We sink or swim together.
Yes, compact together, remember.
There it is. And that leads us to the final verse, verse 9. And I noticed another grammar shift here. We started with let us go, but how does it end?
Verse 9. Because of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek thy good.
I will.
The shift back to the singular I. This is the moment of personal responsibility.
I love this progression. We went from the emotion of I was glad to observation to prayer and now to action.
It is action. The word seek there isn't passive. It's not I will hope for your good. It's I will hunt for it. I will pursue it.
So he's not waiting for someone else to fix things. He's not waiting for his neighbor to be nice first. He says, I am going to actively pursue the welfare of this place.
And that is such a heavy challenge. It asks you, the listener, to move from being a consumer of your community to being a creator of your community.
And we do treat our cities like products sometimes, don't we? The traffic is bad, the leadership is annoying. I think I'll move.
Exactly, the consumer mindset. This product is defective, I want a refund. But the psalmist says, because of the house of the Lord, I will seek thy good. My faith compels me to be a constructive force.
So we've journeyed through this short text, just 9 verses, and we've seen a whole blueprint for a flourishing life.
It really is.
Let's recap. We started with joy.
The joy that comes not from isolation, but from gathering.
Then we saw unity.
The city compact together, intentional structure, shared identity.
Then justice.
The thrones of judgment, realizing you can't have holiness without fairness.
And finally, peace and responsibility.
Praying for the shalom of the city and then personally committing to seek its good.
It's amazing how it moves from an emotion, I was glad, to a commitment, I will seek.
That is the maturity of faith. It starts with a feeling, but it ends with a vow.
So for you listening right now, we hope this deep dive has shifted your perspective. This isn't just some old song about a foreign city. It's a mirror.
It asks us to look at our own lives. Are we complaining about our society, or are we praying for its peace and actively seeking its good?
And that leads us to the big question we want to leave you with today. We always want this to be practical. So here it is. How will you apply this information in your life?
Specifically, look at your city, your workplace, your neighborhood, your family, through the lens of verse 9. What is one tangible way you can say, I will seek the good of this place this week?
Maybe it's a prayer for a leader you don't agree with, or a conversation with a neighbor. Maybe it's just showing up when you'd rather stay home.
Whatever it is, it strengthens that relationship with God because you are helping to build the peace you're praying for.
If you enjoyed this deep dive and you want to keep getting these practical insights, we'd love for you to support the show. You can do that by joining our mailing list.
Head over to https://bit.fractaladvice. That's bit.wileypracticaladvice.
We really appreciate you taking this climb with us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Now, before we go, we want to leave you with one final thought, something to chew on this week.
The psalmist says, peace is found within the walls of the community you build. If you are looking for peace in isolation, are you looking in the one place it was never designed to be found?